it's Brittany, and today I'm going to talk to you about proper stretching before any type of physical activity, specifically for high school swim team. There's a couple reasons why we want to make sure that we have a good warm-up before every type of training program or any type of activity that we're going to engage in. If you think about getting in your car during the wintertime when it's really cold and you turn on the heat, it takes a little bit of time for that heater to actually produce the hot air. It's the same thing for our muscles. We want to give a little bit of an introduction and warm up those muscles in order to start preparing for the activity that we're going to engage in. So warming up is really important because it's going to increase our internal core temperature. It's going to start warming up our muscles, and it's going to start that blood flow going to our muscles so we can properly perform in our activity. There are three main components to every good warm-up. The first one is going to be any type of aerobic activity. So this could be something like jogging or cycling for approximately 5 minutes. Afterwards, the second component is going to be stretching. So this stretching can be dynamic stretching or static, but it is preferred to have dynamic stretching that is similar to movements that you're going to be performing in your activity. And finally, the third component is going to be similar movements related to the actual activity that you're going to be engaging in. So for this example, for a swim team, there's a lot of stroking. So we're going to do a lot of arm swings to mimic that pulling through the water with that stroke. So let's go ahead and get started. For a sample warm-up, that would be appropriate for a high school swim team. Okay, just got done with our 5-minute jog around this nice little park, or around, we could say, even the pool deck, right? The first dynamic stretch that we're going to be doing is going to be the lunge in step with rotation. So I'll show you from the side how we're going to properly set that up. The first part is making sure that you're standing erect. Make sure your shoulders are back and your feet are shoulder width apart. You're going to take a big step forward and place your opposite hand down on your ground next to the foot that's planted here. You're going to be keeping this back leg straight, and then make sure that this knee is not going over your toes. It's a nice 90-degree angle essentially. And then don't rest your upper body on your leg. We want to make sure that our hand is firmly planted. And then with our opposite hand, we're going to rotate up, come down, and then we're going to step forward. And then the next step, our opposite leg, coming down into that lunge, straight leg, hand planted, rotate up. Now the benefit of this exercise is going to be the fact that it's going to really enhance your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, a little bit of that calf, which is really important while we're kicking, as well as when we're pushing off the wall in our flip turns. And then the second piece is that nice rotation in your trunk, and that's going to be important for when we're actually breathing while we're swimming. One thing I didn't mention is while we're down in this stretch here, it's really important to push your hips down because we want to feel that nice stretch in our basically hip flexors there. That's the first exercise, stretch. The second one is going to be a heel to toe walk. How we're setting that up here is, again, standing upright, shoulder width apart, and we're going to basically be walking, and you want to step first with your heel. And then as you plant your foot, you want to quickly accelerate up to your toes, and then heel to toe up, heel, toe rise. And that's going to be, again, important for that ground force reaction. Now you might be thinking, well, what does swimming have to do with ground force reaction? Two things: when we're diving off of the diving board into the water, and then the second one is flip turns. And there's a lot of flip turns that happen in swimming, so making sure that we're getting that nice stretch in our calf is important. One of the key things is it's not a flat step here, it's the heel to toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. And we really want to try to get that as high as quickly as possible from that toe. Okay, the third dynamic stretch that we're going to be doing is going to be a lunge with an overhead side stretch. So essentially, if we're going to step forward with our right foot into a lunge position, when we're down in that lunge, we're going to lift our opposite hand and then stretch towards that leg. So here, again, same thing, standing, our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to step forward with that lunge. We will lunge down and lift with that opposite arm and then stretch over to the side here, holding it for a couple seconds and then coming back to neutral, stepping up and switching feet. So I can show you from the side view here. So we're going to lunge forward, again making sure that that knee doesn't go over the toes. We'll do a nice lunge down, lift our opposite hand and stretch to the side. Back to neutral and then stand up here. We want to make sure that our back stays erect the entire time that we're down in that lunge. So we'll step with the opposite foot, lunge down, nice tall back. Again, knees over the toe. Lift that opposite arm and stretch to the side. Back to neutral and stand up. So that's going to be the lunge with the side reach. Really important for stretching out those hips, stretching out the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, and then furthermore getting that nice stretch in your lats. And the lats is one of the dominant upper body muscles that we're actually using while we're swimming. The next dynamic stretch is going to be the arm swing. So how we're going to set this up is we're going to be walking while we're swinging our arms back and forth. So we will raise our arms until they're parallel with the floor. And then we're just going to shift to the left here. And then we're going to stop once our hand and elbow come in alignment with our shoulders. And then this other hand is kind of stretching behind our back here. And then we'll switch to the other side. And we're going to do this while we walk. So we're walking, swinging, walking, swinging, walking, swinging. As you can see, I'm starting to really warm up. I had to take off my jacket. And the last dynamic stretch that we're going to do for this high school swim team is going to be the inchworm. Now, the inchworm will be a great exercise for swim because it has a lot of the muscle groups that are involved in while we're swimming. So it's going to primarily be focusing on our glutes, our lower body, the calves, quads, hamstrings, but we're also going to get a lot of that erector and then a little bit of the shoulders as well because we're basically going to be doing a walking with our hands. So how we set up the inchworm, is going to be always standing shoulder width apart, nice and tall here, and a little bit of slight flex in our knees, but a little bit of bend. We don't want to lock our knees out. And we're going to basically fall forward at our hips here, place our hands on the ground, and then we are going to walk our hands out into a push-up position here. Again, some cueing here is making sure that they're not dipping and lowering their back. Make sure they're not arching here. So into that push-up, and then we're going to inch our feet forward to our hands, and then walk our hands out to that push-up, holding in that core, walking our feet towards our hands, walking our hands out to that push-up, etc. So I think I might have been out of the video there, but that's going to be the inchworm. So we want to, again, I'll show you just in case I was out of that video too far, falling forward at that waist, walking our hands out to that push-up position, and then walking our feet towards our hands there. So that's going to be a really good last dynamic stretch that's all over body. We're going to do 2 static stretches for the high school swim team. The first one is going to be basically an arm raise. So how we set this up is locking our hands behind our shoulders. So you can see I'm going to have my palms facing one another. And I'm going to then straighten my arms out as much as possible, keeping my neck neutral, so I don't want to push it forward. I don't want to be looking up. And then I'm going to slowly start raising my arms to where I can basically feel that stretch in my pecs and my shoulder. So nice and lifted here. Sometimes it can help if you actually bend forward because you're able to get a little bit more of that forced pressure. And that forced pressure can be beneficial for pushing your arms past that to range of motion, which is really important again to get that nice stretch. So that arm stretch is going to be helping the pecs and the shoulders, which again are dominant muscle groups that we're using while we're swimming. The last static stretch that we're going to do is a look left, look right. So this is going to help with the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And this is important because a lot of times while we're swimming, we're doing this to breathe. The most simple exercise because we're doing what it says. So we'll stand erect, shoulders back, and then simply look right, and then look left. Look right, and then look left. Making sure we're not putting our chin down, it's in a nice neutral position. So that's going to be the second component of the warm-up. And then the third component of the warm-up is we want to do some type of activity that's similar to the movements in swimming. So for this, we're just going to do a really easy arm swim. So mimicking basically that stroke here, we'll just swing our arms sideways here. And then we also want to do kind of like the backstroke. Okay, so very similar to that actual movement that we'll engage in while we're swimming. And then one last one here is maybe just a little kick out on each side because this is similar to that movement of the breaststroke where we're using. That is going to be the conclusion of our warm-up for the high school swim team. As you can see, they have the three components, the aerobic component, the dynamic and static stretching component, and then finally similar movements to what we might see while we're actually swimming. So I hope you enjoyed, and go ahead and provide me some feedback. And the next time you're getting ready to swim, try this warm-up routine in order to start firing up those muscles, getting them warmed, and getting your muscles prepared for that performance. Thank you.